has two kids locked in an outbuilding. They've been in there for days.
And what deputies found when they responded was absolutely horrifying. According to an official news release from the sheriff's office, quote, deputy.
What the heck?
Sorry to interrupt. Isn't it annoying when ads do that? Luckily, this free ad blocker can help. Hi is a browser extension that blocks ads on all your favorite sites. It installs it inside.
Office, quote, deputies had to force entry into the barn where they located a juvenile male and juvenile female locked inside an approximate 20 by 14 foot room. The children had no means to exit the barn on their own, no running water, no bathroom facilities, and were obviously deprived of adequate hygienic care and food. But the horror didn't end there. Inside the main house, deputies made another startling discovery. According to the release, at the main residence, deputies located another small child locked inside alone. The child was observed in an unprotected loft approximately 15 feet high. So Lance and Whitefeather, they later arrived, were subsequently arrested, hit with a felony charge of gross child neglect of a child, resulting in the substantial risk of injury. Later, the charges were upgraded when they were dealt with a whopping 20-count indictment, including human trafficking, child abuse, using a minor for labor. By the time they stood trial, they faced 35 counts. And before we go any further into this, I want to bring on friend of the show, civil rights attorney Joe Richardson. Joe, thanks so much for coming on. This is such a terrible case. Initial impressions, initial thoughts on this one?
Oh my gosh, where do you even go? I mean, it's clear that these children were treated subhumanly in a way.
My bad, let's keep freezing. I don't know what the heck wrong with it. Trying to keep freezing. Lay it back.
And may God have mercy on your souls, because this court will not.
An emotional sentencing in Kanawha County Circuit Court for a couple found guilty of a number of charges, including human trafficking, civil rights, and child abuse. This after investigators say Ginny Whitefeather and Donald Lance locked their children inside a closed-off area of a barn in Sissonville. The discovery made by sheriff deputies in October 2023. The couple addressing the court Wednesday.
I just like the court to know that I have made mistakes, and I'm very sorry for that. And I love my children. I have never, ever done anything to any one of my 8 children to harm them intentionally.
Yeah, okay.
Just like to say, the children, I do love you.
Those children also addressing the court through impact statements. The eldest child calling Whitefeather and Lance monsters and saying they were tortured mentally. Another one of the children saying, I will be something amazing. I will be strong and beautiful. You will always be exactly what you are. Horrible. Even the youngest child writing a letter that was read aloud.
Taught to laugh at my siblings and told they were bad. I was kept from them and watched all this stuff happen. Now in my new home, I see that everything was not right there with Jeannie and Donald.
Prosecutors making a plea for a penalty they believe fits the crime.
I ask you to remember that Jeannie Whitefeather and Donald Lance have provided these children with a life sentence. They are beautiful and wonderful children. I cannot say enough good about these children. But they will deal with the effects of Mr. Lance's and Miss Whitefeather's treatment for the rest of their lives.
Yeah.
The couple likely to spend the rest of their lives behind bars. The judge handing down a sentence of more than 200 years for Whitefeather and more than 150 years for Lance. She also left both with strong words.
That they will bear the psychological...
Bring it back.
Their lives behind bars. The judge handing down a sentence of more than 200 years for Whitefeather and more than 150 years for Lance. She also left both with strong words.
That they will bear the psychological scars of what was done to them by you, Jeannie Whitefeather, and you, Donald Lance, for the rest of their lives.
Abby Lord, WSAZ, Kanawha County.
Wait, so the guy's name is Lance? Mr. Lance? If I got that right. Mr. Lance was his name. I'm guessing he got less time than the woman, or did the woman get more time? Either way, they both got slavery numbers. Slavery, man. Man, oh my goodness, that is ugly. That is ugly, man. Why would you even do that to those children in the first place, man? Some people just be too bored in life, huh? You mix boredom with I don't know, thinking hatred or mix it with evil intentions, and I guess this happens. I don't know. That's crazy, bro. I can't believe this. We already have enough slavery going on in America as it is. In the prison system, of course. And there, you're enslaved no matter what your skin color is. You're enslaved. You gotta work for little to nothing. You know, cats get beat up. You know, impaled with sharp objects. For a freaking cookie, yo. For a cookie? I heard about cats getting slapped at school for a cookie, but damn, cats get hit with hard objects across the dome. And not in an intensive care unit. Like, what the freak? That's no way to live at all, man. But hey, that's how they gonna have to live with them slavery numbers that just been hit with by that judge. Oof. They ain't never getting out. They ain't never getting out. They stuck. They stuck. They stuck like chalk. They stuck. They stuck, bro. Let me see what's going on with this one. They might have more info on it.
What you did do was put on one of the most reprehensible, narcissistic defenses that I have ever seen in my years of trial work.
Yeah.
And may God have mercy on your souls.
Because this court will not.
A West Virginia couple will spend the rest of their lives in prison after adopting 5 children, only to subject them to unimaginable horrors, including being locked inside of a shed for days and forced to perform grueling labor. But thanks to those who refuse to stay silent, these monsters will never walk free again. I'm going to speak with civil rights attorney Joe Richardson to dive into this truly disturbing case.
See, snitching ain't all bad. They just helped a bunch of children.
Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law and Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. Okay, so I'm not going to sugarcoat this for you. This is a story of a nightmare that was disguised as a home. It is a case that is so brutal and upsetting that it has drawn national outrage. Jeanne Whitefeather and Donald Lance, a white West Virginia couple, adopted 5 black children, but not to love them, no, to abuse them in what prosecutors referred to as, quote, modern-day slavery. Their crimes? Human trafficking, child torture, forced labor. It is a level of cruelty that is so extreme. And last week, justice was served when these 2 were sentenced collectively to a punishment that exceeds 3 lifetimes, meaning they will die behind bars. And that sentencing marked the end of a harrowing case that began back in October of 2023, when a home health worker 911 call exposed the extent of what was going on inside this house, where the children, then aged 5 to 16, were imprisoned, starved, and forced to work like, quote, slaves on the couple's rural Sissonville property. But the real story lies in what those children endured and how they survived. So I want to go back to that October evening in 2023 when this house of horrors was uncovered. At 5.
Not to stop it, but they reap what they sow, man. You know? They put them through prison. Now they're headed to prison with a slavery of a life sentence.
5:46 p.m. on October 2nd, a home health worker made this urgent call to the Kanawha County Sheriff's Office.
He has 2 kids locked in an outbuilding. They've been in there for days.
And what deputies found when they responded was absolutely horrifying. According to an official news release from the sheriff's office, quote, deputies had to force entry into the barn where they located a juvenile male and juvenile female locked inside an approximate 20 by 14 foot room. The children had no means to exit the barn on their own, no running water, no bathroom facilities, and were obviously deprived of adequate hygienic care and food. But the horror didn't end there. Inside the main house, deputies made another startling discovery. According to the release, at the main residence, deputies located another small child locked inside alone. The child was observed in an unprotected loft approximately 15 feet high. So Lance and Whitefeather, they later arrived, were subsequently arrested, hit with a felony charge of gross child neglect of a child, resulting in the substantial risk of injury. Later, the charges were upgraded when they were dealt with a whopping 20-count indictment, including human trafficking, child abuse, using a minor for labor. By the time they stood trial, they faced 35 counts. And before we go any further into this, I want to bring on friend of the show, civil rights attorney Joe Richardson.
Oh, man.
Joe, thanks so much for coming on. This is such a terrible case. Initial impressions, initial thoughts on this one?
Oh my God.
Bruh, come on, man.
So State Farm tried charging me $187.
Since you're on commercial and all that, so what I had in my mind is that I don't think this would have ever happened if people were planning out their children more. Most likely those were unplanned pregnancies. I hate to say it, but that's what it is. You know what I'm saying? There's no way. I mean, it's possible, but I don't think that those children come from parents that were married and got a divorce. I just don't think so. Most likely they come from parents who just was reckless with their thingamings down there. I'm just saying. Most likely. That's why it's important to do it the Lord's way, man. It's important, man.
For auto insurance? I don't think so. Luckily, my friend told me about this site. Now I'm only paying
It's vital
$85 for full
for human survival.
Oh my gosh, where do you even go? I mean, it's clear that these children were treated subhumanly in a way where there's no gray area. There's no, there's no two ways about it. There's so much that doesn't make sense here, particularly as it pertains to the idea that someone has actually been adopted and therefore you're supposed to care for these siblings and care for these kids and give them something that they're missing. And there's no two ways about what actually was happening to them because we saw what we saw between the video, the things at the house. It's just problem all the way around and that they're treated subhumanly. And the only way to describe it is, yes, they're treated like slaves.
What are the civil rights laws that are triggered here? Because again, you don't see these kind of allegations very often, at least in my perspective.
Yeah, that's crazy.
These cases.
Yeah, I mean, boy, where do you start? So theoretically, what you can argue are that the civil rights of these children basically have been taken by their parents. It's kind of strange because you don't normally see it. Normally, the allegations are the criminal side allegations against the parents related to child abuse, related to child neglect and things like that. But is there a way to argue that the children had liberty taken away from them and those types of things in a case that would be against the parents? Well, that's not going to go very far. But could something be said about the agencies that were supposed to be looking after them? If they find information that would demonstrate it, they've been investigated for a while. They had been investigated for a while in the previous place that they lived. Is there potential for there to be something brought because these particular folks missed the ball?
Okay.
Well, here's the thing, right? These parents are understanding past home studies, adoption screenings, homeschooling the kids. Is there a problem in the vetting process?
There's an argument that there's a problem in the vetting process, but at the very least, there were investigations once they had the children. There were already claims that there were problems that way. And normally, though, it's harder to get a public entity, like it would be the state, a state agency, a county agency, for liability unless...
Hold on. It's freezing up a bit. I had to put the charger in. Hold on.
As they breach a mandatory duty that is statutory. So you can't just sue them for garden variety common law negligence. But if you can show that they had some obligation in the law statutorily that they did not meet, then maybe you have something there, and it would certainly be worth looking at in this stage.
By the way, we were able to find criminal histories for both Whitefeather and Lance on TruthFinder, the powerful background checker. So we just put in their names and state, West Virginia, located their profiles in just a few seconds. And under their criminal histories, we found these charges for child neglect. Now, Law and Crime, we partner with TruthFinder. We use it to get details on people involved in our stories. But even if you don't work in true crime, this can be an excellent resource to give you some peace of mind. It's one of the largest public record search services in the United States. And with a paid subscription service, you can get access to unlimited reports about about almost anyone. So right now, if you're interested, you can get 50% off of your first month of confidential background reports. Just go to truthfinder.com/LC sidebar. So let's go now to January's explosive trial. So prosecutors laid out a disturbing pattern of racial targeting and abuse. And the evidence showed that they adopted these children from a Minnesota homeless shelter before moving them across state lines to Washington and then West Virginia, where the abuse had escalated. And jurors even...
My question is, are they siblings or what's going on?
Even saw damning proof of forced labor and psychological torture, including surveillance footage showing children being punished by standing motionless for hours with their hands on their heads. Now, what were the defense's claims? Well, Whitefeather's attorney, Mark Plants, called the shed where the deputies found the malnourished children a, quote, teen clubhouse. And I want you to listen to this argument from a preliminary hearing.
There's a key inside, and the 14 and 16 want their teenage clubhouse. They go down there and play around.
Now, this explanation collapsed under scrutiny because the 911 caller directly contradicted Plants, testifying she saw Lance lock the children inside. Neighbors also took the stand, describing how they'd suspected abuse from the moment the family moved into the neighborhood. One emotional witness explained why she contacted Child Protective Services.
I was afraid that they would move away and those little kids, nobody would be there to help them.
And when Whitefeather and Lance took the stand, their testimony painted a starkly different picture. Whitefeather claimed she was a devoted mother who cooked, cleaned, did most of the farm work herself. She denied all abuse allegations, doubling down on the teen hangout story.
I'm his mommy. I mean, they can disown me, but I will never disown them. As far as I'm concerned, they're my children.
You love all your children.
I love all my children.
And when Donald Lance took the stand, he painted himself and Whitefeather as overwhelmed parents simply trying their best, explained that one of the couple's children had mental health issues that they were trying to manage. But the jury had already seen damning evidence that told a very different story, including text messages where the couple referred to their black children as, and I'm very sorry to say this, monkeys. That's what they said.
Oh, they called it an act. But they say sorry for all the griping. I know you get enough going on with the three. Oh, I'm really sick. See, it said right there. With the cursor is circling. I'm really sick right now and just irritated that these kids are such and don't give up. It's a huge thing for me if everyone is moving to a new house. Damn, they caught like that. Woo. They better serve slavery. My question is to y'all, what y'all think they should get? Y'all think they should just, do those several life sentences, or y'all think should it be like something more severe? Like maybe, I don't know, a gulag, or maybe guillotine. I don't know. It's up to y'all, man. I don't know. I wonder what would have happened in the medieval ages. Probably the guillotine, most likely. Yeah.
Mock them. Discussed physical punishments. Don't you know that digital evidence really hard to argue against? And in one particularly disturbing exchange, they used the initials PB to describe one child, meaning P-boy, P-brain, psycho boy. Here's how Lance attempted to explain these messages.
After the...
Let me guess. You're thinking about going to therapy. And as a therapist,
heck no, I ain't thinking about that.
I'm going to say that's a great idea. But first, let's talk about the things they don't tell you. First of all,
let's talk about this case.
These messages.
After the 100th time that your 10 to 13-year-old kid, who wets his pants, it gets a little bit frustrating because every time it takes time, you have to get him cleaned up, change his clothes, or get his clothes changed, and it gets frustrating.
Joe, back to you.
What?
I mean, what do you want to hit first? The surveillance footage, the witnesses, the text messages? Was it a foregone conclusion that they were going to be convicted of a lot of these charges?
Yeah, it actually was, because they had the receipts, as folks like to say so much. They were able to use these guys' own camera footage. You know what I mean?
Much.
No, this is your footage. And of course, from the very beginning, neighbors saw that there were some things that were going on that shouldn't be going on. And then you add the texts that can't be, sometimes people say, well, you text without context. Well, you've got full conversations where they're calling these kids out of their name. They're calling these kids something that they shouldn't be calling them if they actually care about them. So they're really able, it's very damning. It's not just people looking through the window and seeing some problems, even though that was there. It's their own actions, their own words, the things that they're saying that there's no gray area for. It's one thing if you're a little hard on the child or something and you're explaining it that way. They say you're teaching them discipline. You teaching them discipline by calling them monkeys. What discipline are you teaching by having them stand for hours with their hands on their heads? What discipline are you teaching by them not being able to go to the bathroom? There's no excuse for it, and there's no gray area for it. So they were going to get convicted.
Yeah.
Tough case to defend. I mean, during sentencing, my understanding is the judge criticized them for their defense, chastised them for their lack of remorse. Why do you think they took the stand?
I guess they figured they wouldn't be any worse off for having done it, but it's a continued, it's up to them. Maybe it was against their attorney's advice. But it's also the potential for continued delusion, a continuation of the delusion that they've been in the entire time.
He said they have an attorney. Who the heck will represent them? I wonder. He must have been getting paid because his reputation probably tarnished.
So even though the evidence is damning, okay, there's still the matter of whether or not your explanation insults intelligence. And they really did that. I can imagine the jury was probably angry by hearing him. You call it a clubhouse? You didn't have to call it a clubhouse if it wasn't on text that it was called a clubhouse, or if it wasn't on video that it was called clubhouse. Why would you make that up? We all know it's not a clubhouse.
There ain't no clubhouse. That's a trap house, like an actual trap house. Not the ones that they use to peddle drugs in and out of. Nah. That's a nickname. This is an actual trap house where they're trapped at and can't get out.
So they made a lot of bad decisions in their testimony. They probably knew they'd have the book thrown at them anyway. But even if they're going to testify, which is rare, there's a question of how you testify. And the way that they testified really insulted the jury and the judge's intelligence.
And a few things here. I mean, first of all, I got to call out the people around here. The neighbors, the home health worker decided to get involved, alert CPS to what was happening. Lance had made the argument that, one of the children peed his pants, that this was frustrating. But these were children who were subjected to extended periods of time without even having access to a toilet, among other horrors, such as only being given peanut butter sandwiches, staying in dirty clothes. It compiled. Now, here's the thing. I want to go to the end of this case. So during closing arguments, Whitefeather's attorney argued that this was simply a case of bad parenting, that this was not racial animus. But prosecutor Madison Tuck dismantled that argument in her powerful closing argument.
I want to remind you that defendant Whitefeather and defendant Lance made a bet when they chose to move to Sissonville, West Virginia.
So that's their attorney. Oof.
They bet that people of West Virginia would not care if they mistreated their black children right out in front of the world. I ask you to prove them wrong.
And prove them wrong the jury did, delivering guilty verdicts on 31 of the 35 counts.
We, the jury, find the defendant, Jeannie K. Whitefeather, guilty beyond a reasonable doubt of human trafficking of a minor child. We, the jury, find the defendant, Donald Ray Lance, guilty beyond a reasonable doubt of human trafficking of a minor child.
And so the convictions included human trafficking of a minor, civil rights violations, forced child labor, severe child abuse. Whitefeather was convicted of all 19 counts against her, including civil rights violations, while Lance was convicted of 12 of the 16 counts against him. So the jury didn't find him guilty of 4 counts of civil rights violations. And when sentencing came on March 19th, the children, who are now safe in foster care, faced their tormentors. And their words cut through the courtroom, with one child saying, "Don't call her my mother, please. That's my only request to you. Her name is Jan or Miss Whitefeather." Another child saying, "I will be something amazing. I will be strong and beautiful. You will always be exactly what you are. Horrible." Judge Mary Claire Ackers delivered the final blow, sentencing Whitefeather to 215 years behind bars and Lance to 160 years behind bars.
And instead,
So I'm guessing she must have been a mastermind behind it for her to get way more time than him. See, this is what Jesse Lee Peterson say all the time. Don't listen to the woman. But in this case, they both listened to the enemy. You know who that is.
instead of apologizing today, because you never have said you're sorry, even though, Miss Whitefeather, you say you made some mistakes, but you're not sorry for them. And Mr. Lance, I didn't hear you apologize either.
Oh.
When you had the opportunity.
Uh-huh.
But what you did do was put on one of the most reprehensible, narcissistic defenses that I have ever seen in my years of trial work. And may God have mercy on your souls.
Because this court will not.
Now, the couple was also ordered to pay $280,000 each in restitution for the children's future therapy and medical care. Joe, why do you think that they were...
Wait, how much?
For the children.
Now,
the couple was also ordered to pay $280,000 each in restitution for the children's future therapy and medical care. Joe, why do you think that they were...
I don't think they even have that paper, so I think it's best if they just work it off.
Were convicted, and why do you think Lance wasn't convicted across the board? You know, I find it interesting in these kinds of cases when the evidence is so bad and egregious that if you have a jury who doesn't just automatically convict across the board, to me it signals they carefully looked at the evidence, and that makes their decision, you know, even more supported, even stronger. But why do you think they were convicted, and why do you think he wasn't convicted of some of those civil rights violations?
Well, clearly they were thoughtful, right? And so it would be, you know, no one would have questioned this if they just said, listen, let's just sit around and have a lollipop and just find these guys guilty on everything. But they followed where the evidence took them, compared it to the elements of each of the causes of action. And it may be because of some level of decreased involvement as it pertains to a particular thing that lends to the civil rights cause of action itself, that they didn't get dad on all of those elements. Maybe one or two people on the jury weren't quite as sure. I am certain there might have been a couple of people who've been like, gosh, we can convict them of this. But technically speaking, as it pertains to this cause of action related to the civil rights violations, for what we saw, maybe we saw Mom Whitefeather here, but we didn't see Lance here with this and this particular thing. So a little bit technical, but it also shows how thoughtful they were.
When you hear a combined 375-year prison sentence, my understanding is maybe life in prison is just not an automatic punishment for these charges, but you combine all the convictions together, right? And that's how you come up with that number. What does that significance of that number mean to you? Because a lot of people say, you know, 100 years in prison, 200 years in prison, 160 years in prison. Like, we look at life in prison, but sometimes the number is more impactful than just saying life in prison. There's something about that number. What did you take away from that, from the amount of time they're going to be behind bars?
Well, it shows that what they did was egregious.
We've got about 50 million followers.
Man, these
we're
commercials,
in the billions
man.
of views. And we're a small team. We always felt like our content
Shoot,
was...
I'm trying to get a small fraction of that, homie. Let's say I got 50 million something. What is it, subscribers? Or well, you can't rewind commercials. But yeah, man, the way I see it, life is life, man. The way I see it, I think they gave them, when you count it up, that's probably like 3 or 4 life sentences. One life sentence is already life. So either way, they're not getting out. But I get it. I get why they did it like that and added all those years and years and decades and centuries. Because normally when you get one life sentence, you still got a chance of getting out. So yeah. Not all the time though, but sometimes they'll say 25 to life. So I get why they said a combination of 300 plus years. That way they have no chance of getting out, even if they're on good behavior. So
They did was egregious, right? And it's recognized as egregious by the judge. I believe, as it pertains to both of them, and I don't want to get them mixed up, that theoretically they could qualify for parole. It would be many decades down the road, and I don't know that they actually will. But it's also a technical formula as well. You're at X number of years. Based on this, you could qualify for parole after Y number of years. So there's a technical formula component, but the number of years that acts as several hundred years First of all, it speaks to two things. First of all, that it's totally egregious. Second of all, that there's no way, even if there was a technical possibility of getting parole at some point before they were dead, it's not going to happen.
That's all I said.
How does, when you hear the kids speak, right? Don't call her my mother. You get an insight into the psychological damage this did as well, right?
Yeah. These kids are never going to get over this.
Never.
Some things that you can't get over, but you have to get through. So they'll need lifelong mental health care. That doesn't mean they can't live productive lives. That doesn't mean that they can't turn this negative situation into their own best positive outcome. But you never get over something like this. You just have to get through it a day at a time and push through and try to exact forgiveness in a situation where someone is not saying sorry and is not in a position to be or to deserve forgiveness. You've got to forgive them anyway, just so that you can live the best life you can let them go so that you can therefore move forward. And it's very, very hard for someone that is so naturally aggrieved and has a right to be aggrieved. They've got a right to be mad for the rest of their lives, mad at the world, mad at everybody. But for them to be productive, they're going to have to find a way to move forward. And it's going to be very, very hard.
And for them to be godly as well. And I just hope that they don't hold or put every person with white skin in the same box. I just hope they don't develop a negative stereotype because of this. Which might happen. I don't know. I hope not. That wouldn't help.
And I'll tell you, look, these two, I don't see any option where they're getting out of prison. I mean, I don't think they're ever going to be stepped out of prison ever again.
They're screwed.
And these children are going to move on with their lives. You heard one say that they're going to be amazing. We wish them nothing but success and love and the best. But really, you got to also call out the people around them who refused to look away and spoke out and testified and called 911. So, listen, Joe Richardson, tough case. Thank you so much for taking the time. It was great seeing you.
Thank God.
Good seeing you, Jesse. Thanks much.
And that's all we have for you right now here on Sidebar, everybody. Thank you for joining us. And as always, please subscribe on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. I'm Jesse Weber. I'll speak to you next time.
And subscribe to me, too. Sure, I'm small time out here, man. These dudes big. But hey, subscribe to them, too. Me first, though. Me first. No, I'm just playing. But they did pretty good, man. With the breakdown of this, oh man, this story here is something. This something for the history books right here. Damn. And they got hit with slavery numbers. Said you reap what you sow. God is not to be mocked, man. You think you can get away with evil out here? You think the Lord won't pay you back 10-fold, 20-fold? Shoot, maybe 100-fold. Man, come on, man. Now y'all stuck. Y'all stuck. Y'all stuck. Y'all can't get out. Just like they was inside that so-called treehouse or clubhouse. Come on, man. You know they ain't no clubhouse, man. Come on, man. That's a trap house, like an actual trap. That's all that was. Shoot, let me see what they saying in the comments, man. If I get up out of here. Also, this happened years ago. So I'm late. I just saw it pop up on Google not long ago, so I don't know. It said, oh, look, see, they just dropped this a few days ago. In 2023, it says a home health worker called 911 to report the 5 adopted black children. Then between the ages of 5 and 16 were being subjected to horrific abuse. White West Virginia. Couple Gene White Feather and Donald Lance have now been given the maximum punishment for treating the children as slaves. Law and Crime's Jesse Weber discusses the latest developments with civil rights attorney Joe Richardson. Oh, man. So, yeah, basically that's what happened in the video. Let's see what's going on in the comments, man. So, load up for me. Yes. Let's see. Now, imagine how many other foster adopted children are being abused out there. That just hasn't been caught yet. Facts. Yeah, I heard about it for years, man. Especially in the comment sections, they be the main ones talking about it because not many people are really talking about it on video. Somebody said just because people live in nice houses doesn't mean nice things are going on inside. Did they even show these people's house? I don't know. But that's facts. That's facts, yeah. You like that verse when the Lord approached those Pharisees or those Sadducees. And I think he said on the outside you're all clean and all, but on the inside you're rotten to the core, like rotting bones or something like that. It said. And yeah, that's how it be with these houses. On the outside it's all nice, but on the inside you don't know what's going on. Might be some type of ritual going on. I don't know. That's probably what these people is doing, some type of ritual. I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised. Because that was not the Lord's work. That was Satan's work. They say what's crazy is this was a historic trial, and yet the coverage was so minimum. Probably right on that, because I don't know if I heard about this. And this happened in 2023. How the heck did that go past my head? You would have thought I would have heard about that. You know? But then during that time I was in a hiatus anyways. They are now safe, and sadly the word safe and foster care don't belong. Yeah, they did say that. I was like, But we can't always say that every foster parent would do something like this. You know what I'm saying? We could just hope for the best. You know? May the Lord be with them. Those kids should sue the adoption agency. Sure, facts on that. Can you even sue as a child? I don't know. Somebody said, oh, wonder who's looking out for them now. Remember what happened to Turpin children? The Turpin children? I don't know what's going on with that. I might look into that. Exactly right. How can people like this be allowed to adopt children? I know they aren't going to admit to what they are doing, but there must have been signs. Shoot, the signs was that freaking lengthy record each of them had. When you look at their background. So yeah. Yeah, like I say, shouldn't your record be clean? You know? If you're gonna adopt. That should be one of the things that has to be in place. You probably, yeah. These people had a dirty record. I mean, they probably had no felonies on it. I don't know. That's probably how they was able to weasel their way through the system, and were able to still adopt, even though they mind weren't right. They had a record. They didn't go down the whole record, but they had a record. That should be red flag number 1. You know what I'm saying? But I don't know, man. Somebody, let me see. Look at these people. What is they arguing about, man? It don't matter what the heck they was. That don't have anything to do with their personality and the way they do things. You know, you got people who stand for good and people who stand for bad on both sides. Both sides. Anyways, somebody said, bless that home healthcare worker who cared and called 911. Yeah. Bless her for sure. 5 children adopted, nobody checked them out. The agency handling their adoption should be made accountable. I'm saying is they had a freaking record. Both of them had a record. Like, what the frick? This is how all child abuse cases should be handled. Thank you, Judge. Facts on that. Got them out of here. But I can't say all though, cause some are not on the same level. But I get what she's saying though. Somebody say, man, it's really abuse and not spanking the kids, walking to school, or cell phones being taken away, household chores and other regulators claims of abuse that are just parenting. Yeah, facts on that. Facts. Yeah. You don't want to give somebody a bunch of time because they spanked their child. Like, nah. That's why I said I don't really agree with the all, and she put all in all capitals. I don't know about all, but I get what she's saying though. So as I don't believe this is the appropriate space to advocate and push your agenda. That hitting a child is not a big shoot, man. Y'all remember that verse that says, "Don't spill the rod." You better not spill that rod. That's probably how those two became like that. They probably came from a family that didn't spare the rod. Or maybe the parent didn't spare them at all. It could go either way. I don't know. But allowing yourself to be a walking mat that your child can walk over, nah, that ain't the way. That ain't the way. Because eventually they're just going to start doing things that causes them to end up in jail. They're going to start abusing you too. Well, mom and dad never raised their hand to me, so I can slap them around. It doesn't matter. Not every child is going to grow up thinking like that, but hey, you never know. You spare that rod too many times. You know what I'm saying? You barking no bite. Yelling at them. Eventually, they're not going to take you serious. It's like, well, the only thing they do is yell at me. They don't really do anything physically. I wonder how far can I push it. I think I'm going to take their car tonight. Without their consent. How strange that's where your brain went when faced with a story of these children suffering so egregiously. It's quite disrespectful to these kids, and that you're using the space without getting justice for them to whine about cell phone, dishing out spankings. In your comment, people have no decorum or respect nowadays. It's just always me. I'm going to make this about my feelings. You just did the same thing. Such an unnecessary... I'm figuring out my words now. Such an unnecessary, shameful comment. Somebody said gender. Laughing my butt off. I was making a point in response. I don't care what you believe. Have a nice day. Facts on that, man. You can't... bro. You cannot be... I mean, it's up to you, man. If you want to be one of those parents that allow your children to walk all over you. It's all in the movies. Children walking all over their parents. It's probably more so in the movies these days. Children walking all over their parents. Because their parents don't do anything. Whenever they do something wrong, they don't do anything. At least make them do freaking 1,000 push-ups or something. Well, not 1,000, but like at least 100. You know what I'm saying? You do them push-ups. You do them 200 push-ups. Or I'm taking your walkie-talkie away. They be like, walkie-talkie? You freaking right, walkie-talkie. Sure. People been getting their 5 years old PlayStation 5s and junk. You know what kind of games they got on PlayStation 5? I mean, I'm not a professional when it comes to dealing with children, but bro, it's common sense, bro. Why would you give your 5-year-old a PlayStation 5 and they say, that game I heard was cool. What's the name of that game? I think it's called Grand Theft Auto. And they're like, oh, okay. Fine, you can play that. Yeah. What? That's on you. You want to be that kind of parent that allow that? That's on you, man. And then what they'll say, this is... Basically what that person was just saying is, it's the wrong time and place. It's never the wrong time and place when it comes to righteousness, bro. It's righteous to discipline your children, bro. It's just what happened in that video. That went way past discipline. That went to straight torture. That was torture mode right there. And now they got them slavery numbers. They reap what they sold. But it's besides the topic right here. When it come down to the truth, it's always the time and place. Yeah. And what they said, because the girl, she kind of went extreme with it, which I understand. You know, this case will leave you all emotional and stuff. But she said all cases. I don't know if she read back what she said or probably just left a comment and left without reading it back. Me, but I leave a comment, I read it back. Then I send it on here. That's when I type in a comment myself. She said all. That's why the person said that, hey, what about somebody just got spanked, or they just got the cell phone taken away. You know, or they was on them about house chores or something. They shouldn't get the same kind of treatment, which is facts. You shouldn't get slavery numbers for disciplining your children with chores and taking away a cell phone. This one dude, he get locked up years ago. I forgot when and where it happened at, but yeah, this dad got locked up years ago because he took away his daughter's smartphone. And the mom, it was the one who called the police on him. No. I think the daughter called the police on him, and the mom took her side. I'm like, how do you co-parent in the same home? You're supposed to co-parent in 2 different homes. It's like they was co-parenting in the same home. But the fick? It's like he's supposed to be the head of the house. If he took a smartphone, it was for a reason. I don't think he took it for nothing. Maybe she was trying too hard to be 18 at 14. Like, the heck? I wonder how she's doing today. Hopefully she's living for the Lord and not living for the moment. He said their lawyer was literally playing solitaire on his phone during the trial. He knew they were doomed. Word? So bless that judge. It seems weird nowadays to have a judge be disgusted and willing to drop the hammer. Kudos to her. Shoot, Judge Judy would have gave them boys a millennium in prison. Somebody says extreme. You sure? You sure you call that extreme? But he is right. People who take out others or delete others, or however you want to say it, they get less time than that. Yes, they do. And they got certain people who go to certain clinics that commit, you see this word here, they get no time in prison. I'm like, what? And it don't be for a good reason either. You know what I'm saying? You got some cases, it could be argued that it's a good reason. But a lot of the times, it's not a good reason. The reason is, I want to go out and party. And I don't want an anchor. Because that's what they see the babies as these days. Anchors, huh? Yeah. So, but it's a heinous crime against children. It just cause, I ain't gonna say that word, don't always get life. Doesn't mean they shouldn't. Facts on that. It said the people allowed this adoption to be in jail. I'm saying. They didn't even look at their background. Like, how y'all ain't gonna even look at the background? My prayers for those innocent children. May they be able to heal mentally, emotionally, physically. In Jesus' name. I'm about to get up out of here, man. I don't want this video to be too long. These comments off the chain, bro. Off the chain. Also, this is where this happened at. This happened in Minnesota. It's important to note that officials in both Minnesota and Washington failed these children. It was the persistent neighbors and officials in West Virginia who saved and delivered justice for them. These despicable people were only in West Virginia. I'm assuming that means that for 5 months before being arrested due to the diligence of caring neighbors. Godspeed. Oh, 5 months. Thank God this didn't happen. I thought this happened for years. You sure? I could have sworn this happened for years. Or was going on for years. So Minnesota has been bad. Look at the case of Eli Hart. I don't know who that is, but yeah, I'm scared to look into that. I had 2 little girls from West Virginia abandoned with me over 20 years ago. They are grown and married now. I'm glad to hear things have changed there. Because in the 90s, it seemed to me anything went there as far as kids were concerned. Oof. I didn't know about that. I'll keep that in mind. Well, I'll try to. I can see some easy things they can work on and improve. It's been ongoing, like in the past, in the middle of really tragic things that would pause for a sponsorship. That was awful. I saw that shameless plug. I was like, bruh. So it's important to know these. To know that these. You lying. They wasn't that. You lying. You lying. Just because they say they's that don't mean they're that. The freak? Nah, I gotta respond. What? Hell no. Hell no. No, I don't say much of anything in these comments. Hold up. Gotta correct kid. The heck? What? Come on now. Why they be so quick to try to say that just because somebody claimed that? Just because they claim that doesn't mean they're that. Thank you, man. Somebody said they was imposters posing as Christians. A true Christian, and they come in every color, does not act in this way. Don't make blanket statements because it makes a person sound ignorant. That's what I'm saying. A person who calls themselves a surgeon with no schooling, training, experience, diploma, and actions that support their claims, they are not a surgeon. Thank you, man. Somebody else said thank you. Exactly, thank you. Yes. What's wrong with this person? You hate God, so now you're trying to blame God? Huh? Unless, I don't know, maybe they're just trying to blame religion. Which, I have no issue with them blaming religion, but don't blame God, though. Like, come on, man. Don't blame God now. Like, I don't know for sure if they're blaming God or not, but most likely they're trying to. Whoever that was. Sometimes I hope the kids will recover, get lots of support, and be able to thrive. Karma did its justice with life in prison for the criminal adoptive parents. Yeah, they got them out of here. Thank you to that community. Fast. West Virginia might be rural and a little behind times. Behind times? Word? But if we see something wrong, 90% we're saying do something. That's good. That's good. That's how it's supposed to be. That's good. Never like my comment. No, I'm just playing. Oh, that's tacky to do. Tacky. I'm about to get up out of here, man. I made this video too long, bro. It's almost an hour, man. It's just, this story is crazy. It's insane. I don't think I've ever heard a story like that. And find the right tab. About to get up out of here. Leave y'all with a verse or two, like I always do. Matthew 18:6. NIV, causing to stumble. If anyone causes one of these little ones, talking about children, those who believe in me, who believe in the Most High, to stumble, it would be better for them to have a large millstone hung around there and to be in the depths of the sea. Simple, man. Simple. And that's how the Lord felt. That's how the Lord still feel. Never mislead these little ones. Never mistreat these little ones. Never do that. And that's the Matthew version. We got another version of it. In the scriptures. Another verse that says the same thing, but kind of different. We got Mark 9:42 ESV. Temptations to sin. Whoever causes one of these little ones who believe in me to sin, right? It would be better for him if a great millstone were hung around his neck and he were thrown into the... Yeah, feel, man. And that probably would have happened to them if they were caught doing something like that back in the days that the Lord was living in the world as a human. They'd probably got one of those tied around their neck, and they'd have played skip rock with them. Well, we got another one right here. Another one. Proverbs 22:6, English Standard Version. Train up a child in the way he should go. Even when he is old, he will not depart from it. So when you raise the children up in the faith, it's hard for them to depart from it. It's hard for Satan to grab a hold of them. See how they raise these children? Just the way of Satan. And I'm hoping that these children doesn't grow up with any hate in their heart. You know what I'm saying? It might happen. I hope not. And y'all keep them in prayer. In Jesus' name. That is unbelievable. But in the world we live in, it's very much believable because since the fall of man, shoot, righteousness went out the window. Not completely out the window because you still have people that's righteous here and there and here. The Lord just asks that you try. That's what he does. He asks that you try to be righteous. You know, that you try to be perfect. Because people say, well, we're not going to do it anyway, so why try? In this situation here, all I can say is if these people tried to be like Christ, none of this would have never happened. These children would have grown up the right way. But, of course, they were raised up the wrong way. So I can only hope that they continue their life down the right path rather than the wrong path. May the Lord be with them. You know what I'm saying? Because that'll screw up anybody's head. You brought up like that? Being mistreated by people that's supposed to be your guardians. They're supposed to be your parents. And you do this? They're probably going to grow up trusting nobody. Nobody. Oh, my goodness, man. But like I said, y'all keep them in prayer, man. I don't want this video to be too long. Because then again, it end up being like 3 gigabyte or some junk. 2 gigabyte. But no, it's not. Because I ain't in no 4K or anything. So, yeah, I'm off the hook. I'm off the hook. But may blessings be upon you all. And may peace be upon you all. Shoot, this is an ugly story. And of course, like always, I'm late on it. Shoot. Better late than never, right? Just like when it comes to people repenting from sin. Better late than never, right? Exactly. Exactly. But if you are in sin, how about you repent today? It may be hard, but you want to be a warrior, don't you? You want to be tough, right? What better toughness is there to work on than being spiritually tough? And you can do that by following the Lord Yeshua, the Christ. Okay? I'm out.